The chandeliered ballroom had fallen quiet for just a heartbeat. Eleanor Gray, a silver-haired philanthropist worth billions, had been mingling among the guests when her eyes caught something across the room. A delicate, weathered necklace resting against the collarbone of a young black girl serving drinks. The girl was smiling shyly, unaware of the attention she was drawing. But Eleanor stopped mid-sentence. Her hand trembled. The glass of sparkling water nearly slipped. She stared as if seeing a ghost. Guests exchanged confused glances. Then, with a voice that cracked under years of buried memories, Eleanor whispered, "Where did you get that necklace?" Eleanor Gray had built her fortune in real estate, yet was known more for her generosity than her wealth. On her 80th birthday, she decided to host a grand charity gala at the Rosemont Hotel. Dozens of donors, old friends and curious journalists attended, expecting an evening of elegance and philanthropy. Among the serving staff that night was Amara, a 19-year-old college student who worked weekends to help pay for tuition. She wore the standard black and white server uniform, her hair neatly tied back. Around her neck hung a simple bronze locket on a thin chain. Most guests never noticed it. To Amara, the locket was priceless. It had been passed down from her late grandmother, who had always told her, "This necklace carries stories of where we came from. Never lose it." The gala began with speeches and applause. Eleanor moved gracefully from table to table, offering warm smiles. But as the evening went on, fatigue and memories weighed on her. She had lost her only daughter decades earlier under tragic circumstances and never truly healed from the grief. Then, while reaching for a glass of water, Eleanor's gaze fell upon the young server carrying a tray nearby. It wasn't Amara's face or uniform that caught her attention. It was that tiny, time-worn locket glinting under the chandelier. A surge of recognition shot through her, stirring memories she had long kept locked away. Eleanor couldn't take her eyes off the necklace. She politely excused herself from the group she had been speaking with and followed Amara discreetly, her heels tapping softly on the marble floor. Other guests assumed she was stretching her legs. Amara, busy delivering drinks, noticed the older woman's gaze, but assumed it was curiosity or even disapproval, something she had grown accustomed to as one of the few black staff members in such elite spaces. She kept her head down and carried on. Eleanor's mind raced. That necklace? She hadn't seen it in over 40 years. Her late daughter, Margaret, had owned one just like it, an heirloom from Eleanor's own mother. But it was lost when Margaret, at 19, left home after a falling out with Eleanor. Months later, tragedy struck and Eleanor never saw her again. She remembered how society and even her own household had judged Margaret for falling in love with a black man. Eleanor had been a different person then, proud, rigid, blinded by the prejudice that had shaped her upbringing. She had driven her daughter away. Amara stepped behind the banquet counter to pick up another tray. Eleanor, feeling her heart pound, hesitated. Memories of that painful rift of words spoken in anger came flooding back. She thought she had buried them under years of charity work, but the sight of that locket tore open old wounds. Meanwhile, Amara's colleagues noticed Eleanor's lingering presence. A few guests whispered. Amara finally turned to face the older woman, offering a polite smile that masked her discomfort. She felt out of place already, aware of how people sometimes looked at her, not as an individual, but as someone who didn't belong in their glittering world. The gala's cheerful music and clinking glasses continued. But between these two women, time felt as though it had slowed to a standstill. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice soft yet trembling. "Excuse me. That necklace? Where did you get it?" The room around them seemed to fade into a hush. Amara hesitated, instinctively touching the locket with her fingertips. Her voice, quiet but steady, replied, "It was my grandmother's. She told me it had been in our family for decades." Eleanor's eyes brimmed with tears. She reached out but stopped short, afraid to intrude. "Did she ever tell you where she got it?" Amara shook her head. "Only that it was given to her mother long ago." Eleanor's chest tightened. She recognized the tiny engraving on the clasp, an old family crest. It was unmistakable. The realization struck like a lightning bolt. The young woman before her was the granddaughter of the daughter she had cast out all those years ago. A gasp escaped Eleanor's lips. The memories of her daughter's last tearful goodbye, of slamming the door instead of embracing her, crashed down on her like a wave. Regret, decades old, surged through her. She closed the small distance between them, her frail hands reaching for Amara's. The young woman stiffened, unsure what was happening. Eleanor's tears finally fell as she whispered almost inaudibly, "I should never have let her go. I'm so sorry." In that moment, the elegant billionaire wasn't a symbol of power or wealth. She was just a grieving mother meeting her granddaughter for the first time. The surrounding guests, sensing something profound unfolding, fell silent. A story of estrangement, prejudice, and loss had found an unexpected moment of reconciliation. Eleanor finally embraced Amara, holding her as though she could bridge the years of absence. With a single gesture, the embrace between Eleanor and Amara marked not just the reunion of two generations, but the healing of a wound inflicted by racism and pride decades earlier. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt the heavy chains of regret loosen. Amara, though confused and overwhelmed, felt a warmth she hadn't expected from the wealthy stranger. As the gala continued, Eleanor took the microphone, her voice still unsteady. She spoke not of wealth or philanthropy, but of her own failures, how prejudice had cost her a relationship with her only child, and how she had learned that love is greater than the barriers people create. Guests listened in stunned silence. Some wiped away tears. The story of a billionaire confronting her own past biases in front of hundreds struck a chord more profound than any charity speech could have. In the weeks that followed, Eleanor and Amara met often. They learned about each other's lives, Eleanor about the struggles Amara and her mother had faced, and Amara about the love her grandmother had tried, in her flawed way, to express. The reunion did not erase the pain of the past, but it opened a door to understanding. This story gained notoriety not because of the wealth involved, but because it revealed a universal truth, that reconciliation begins with humility, and that confronting prejudice within ourselves is often the most challenging yet most necessary act of courage. How many families have been torn apart by the same invisible walls of bias and pride? And how many reunions never happen because those walls are never torn down? Perhaps, as Eleanor's tearful embrace of Amara showed, it's never too late to choose empathy over prejudice and to let love mend what fear once broke.